remember staring at the candle on the table, watching the flame flicker like my hope. 2 hours. That's how long I sat there, alone, on what was supposed to be our 3-year anniversary. I kept glancing at the entrance, pretending not to notice. The sympathetic looks from the waitstaff. People came and went. Dates laughed around me. But there I was, still holding on to this fantasy that he'd walk in, flowers in hand, full of apologies. The truth came out, though. He wasn't late. He didn't care. I was nothing to him. At first, I told myself maybe traffic was bad. Maybe his phone died. Maybe he was planning something elaborate. It's wild what the mind does to protect the heart, right? You start writing excuses for someone who barely even shows up for you. My silence was my answer. I didn't text. I didn't call. I just waited, clinging to a dignity that was quickly slipping through my fingers like sand. And deep down, I knew. He thought I would stay. When Randy finally walked in, it felt like a punch to the chest. He wasn't alone. 3 of his friends stumbled in behind him, laughing and clearly buzzed. His shirt was wrinkled, his hair a mess. He looked around, confused for a second, then saw me and laughed. "You're still here?" he slurred. "You're like a pathetic puppy waiting at the door." That sentence will live rent-free in my mind forever. He broke me first, and didn't even flinch doing it. The people at the next table looked away awkwardly. The waiter froze mid-step. I sat there frozen too. I wasn't embarrassed. I was humiliated, not just because he stood me up, but because he brought an audience to watch me crumble. That moment rewrote every memory I thought was real. The smiles, the shared dreams, the promises, they all blurred under the weight of that smirk on his face. She cried in silence, and I was her. What hurt more than the weight was how easy it was for him, like all those years meant nothing, like I was a placeholder until something better came along. He joked with his friends, ordered shots, and waved at the bartender like this was just another night out. Meanwhile, I sat there trying not to cry in public. I didn't want to be that girl, but I was. I was deceived, and betrayal never hits soft. It cracks you open. I looked down at the wine glass in front of me. It was the only thing I had ordered. I hadn't touched it. My hands were shaking. Every word he said echoed in my chest, louder than the clinking glasses and laughter around. This wasn't just neglect. It was intentional. It was emotional cruelty dressed up as a joke. That's when I knew. He never saw it coming, but I wasn't the same girl anymore. The woman I had been. She planned it all. Not revenge. Not yet. But she started writing the blueprint for her escape. I didn't cry in front of him. I smiled. I raised my glass, toasted to clarity, and sipped like I wasn't breaking inside. He kept laughing, unaware that I'd already started detaching. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is nothing. My silence was my answer, and oh, how loud it would become. I paid for my wine and nothing else. Got up without a word, walked right past him, past his friends, past the judgment and pity and whispers. In the bathroom, I stared at my reflection and made a promise. Never again. Never would I let someone humiliate me and get away with it. She finally left, mentally. Her body just needed a few more hours to catch up. And when she did, he'd regret underestimating her. You know what's funny? He thought I would stay. He really did. He thought a lame apology and a tipsy text would fix everything, that I'd just wipe my tears and be grateful for crumbs. But betrayal changes you. It rewires your brain. And something inside me snapped that night. Not in rage, but in resolve. I wouldn't lash out. I'd rise up. I didn't go home that night. I didn't even tell him I was leaving. I drove to a friend's apartment, poured a glass of wine, and opened my laptop. There were things I had access to, things he forgot, and oh, if only he knew what I was about to do with them. Because when betrayal hits that deep, revenge isn't just sweet, it's strategic. Looking back, the signs were all there, waving like red flags in a hurricane. I just chose to see them as temporary storms instead of full-blown disasters. Randy's job history was erratic, to put it kindly. He couldn't hold anything down for more than 6 months. One day he was all about real estate. The next he was launching a startup that never launched. And each time he quit, it was never his fault. He'd rage about his bosses, call them idiots, and play the victim. Still, I believed in his potential. That was my first mistake. I remember him yelling into his phone one night, leaving a scathing voicemail for his manager, something about how they didn't recognize talent, and how he wasn't gonna be anyone's puppet. The language he used? Brutal. He even mocked the guy's stutter. I was horrified, but somehow I convinced myself he was just venting, because love makes you do that. Rewrite someone's darkness into something redeemable. Nobody believed her when she said he had a temper, but I lived it. He spoke to his own mother like she was beneath him, called her useless, accused her of never supporting him, even after she gave him thousands to stay afloat. And his dad? He cut him off for daring to suggest therapy, but I stayed, because when he was good, he was magnetic, charming, and, oh, he knew how to say the right things when he wanted something. So I told myself he was just misunderstood. I was deceived, again and again. I should have known when he asked me to co-sign for that Mustang. It's just a formality, he said. We're building a future together. And like a fool, I signed. $386 every month. For 3 years. I covered that damn car while he bragged online about hustling. That wasn't partnership, that was manipulation, but he thought I would stay. He took my loyalty as permission to keep draining me. There were days when my bank account screamed at me, but I still paid his insurance, his speeding tickets, even his overdrafts, and not once did he say thank you. It was expected. Like my love came with a price tag. Every time I considered confronting him, I'd remember a sweet memory, a soft smile, and I'd retreat. She cried in silence because shouting wouldn't have made a difference. He never listened anyway. He never saw it coming, that I was keeping receipts, emails, voice messages, even old chats he thought I deleted. It wasn't revenge at first. It was just survival. A part of me knew I'd need proof someday, because people like Randy, they don't go down quietly. They rewrite the story to make themselves the victim. So I saved everything. She exposed him, eventually. But first, she studied him. And the craziest part? He used to say things like, "I'd be lost without you," or "no one else would put up with me." He said it like a compliment, like I should feel lucky to be his emotional punching bag. The truth came out, though. He didn't want a partner. He wanted a babysitter. And the more I gave, the more entitled he became. That's what betrayal looks like when it's slow. It wears a smile and says thank you. It took me way too long to realize I wasn't in a relationship. I was in a long-term guilt trip. The person I became in those years barely resembled me. I used to be bold, playful, sarcastic in the best way. With him, I walked on eggshells. He broke me first, not with fists, but with words, with silence, with disappointment after disappointment. Until one day I stopped recognizing myself in the mirror. People ask why I stayed so long, and my answer is always the same. Because I believed he could change. Because I thought love meant endurance. Because betrayal doesn't always scream, it whispers, manipulates, and gaslights you into thinking you're the problem. I wasn't perfect, sure, but I was loyal. And in the end, that was the weapon he used against me the most. But something shifted that night at the restaurant. Something inside me cracked, and what came pouring out wasn't weakness. It was truth. The same truth I had buried under excuses for years. So when I went home that night, I didn't cry. I logged in. I pulled up every password, every file, every message he thought I forgot. And as I stared at his digital world, I realized he left the door wide open. All I had to do was step in. When I stood up from that table, I swear, time slowed down. The waiter looked at me like he wanted to say something but didn't. The couple next to us whispered. And Randy? He barely noticed. Still laughing, still drunk, still surrounded by his loud, immature friends. I'd waited 2 hours, ordered a glass of wine to keep my hands from shaking, and kept checking my phone like hope was on its way. But when he finally walked in, slurring, stumbling, and calling me a pathetic puppy, that was it. That was the last straw I didn't know I had. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch when his friends chuckled like this was all just some inside joke. Instead, I smiled. One of those calm, unsettling smiles people give when they've finally had enough. I excused myself, quietly placed a $22 tip next to my wine glass, and walked toward the bathroom. And in that hallway mirror, with the music. Muffled behind closed doors, I looked at myself and whispered, my silence was my answer. That was the moment I chose myself, for the first time in a long, long time. You see, she cried in silence for years. And for what? For someone who couldn't show up, even on the one night that actually mattered. I kept thinking about all the nights I covered for him, the lies I told our friends to protect his image, the fake smiles, the fake strength, and I thought he thought I would stay. That was his biggest mistake, because in that bathroom, something cold and clear settled in my chest. This isn't just going to end. This is going to unravel. She planned it all, every click, every keystroke. I didn't need to make a scene in public. That would have made me look unstable. No, what I needed was strategy, clarity, control, and as strange as it sounds, it felt empowering, like I was finally stepping into a version of myself I used to know, back before he broke me first. That woman didn't beg, she didn't chase, she watched, and then she acted. Back at the table, Randy didn't even notice I'd been gone. His friends had moved on to the next round of shots. That's when I knew, whatever we had wasn't real. I was nothing to him, just someone to lean on, pay his bills, clean up his mess. So I slipped out, unnoticed, walked 4 blocks in heels that blistered my feet, and let the night air slap me awake. That walk, it felt like a funeral, not for our relationship, for the illusion I kept alive for way too long. By the time I got home, I had already mentally packed his stuff. 15 garbage bags worth of lies, false promises, and unpaid bills. And while part of me wanted to throw it all in a bonfire, I remembered what my therapist once said: revenge is best served digitally. So I sat on my couch, opened my laptop, and stared at his passwords like they were keys to a vault. He never saw it coming. He should have. But guys like him, they're too arrogant to imagine consequences. I found the messages, the ones he thought he deleted. Flirty emails to a coworker, complaints about me to his friends, calling me clingy, controlling, emotionally unstable. He was building a story in case I ever left. Funny thing is, I wasn't the one who left first. He left emotionally months ago. I just refused to see it. But now I saw everything, and I was done playing nice. The beauty of a graceful exit is that it creates suspense. They don't know what's coming, but they feel it, like when a storm is brewing and the birds go quiet. That's what I gave Randy: silence. I didn't argue. I didn't text. I didn't call. I let him think he won, and that's when he lost. Because while he was nursing a hangover, I was downloading evidence, preparing files, uploading voice messages. His future was still asleep while I was writing the final chapter. And don't get me wrong, I didn't do it out of spite. I did it because I was deceived for too long. I gave love, time, money, grace, and he gave betrayal. Stories of betrayal don't always involve cheating. Sometimes they're just slow drownings in disrespect. So no, I didn't slam the door. I unlocked one, and I let truth walk right in. Because if there's one thing I've learned, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. So as the sun came up, I sat with my coffee and a clear plan, step by step, calm, collected, calculated. And in that silence, something powerful settled inside me. It wasn't rage, it wasn't sadness, it was readiness. Because now, it was time to press send. I didn't flinch when I opened his email. I didn't tremble when I scrolled through the folders labeled private. Honestly, it felt like flipping through a scrapbook of lies. There were screenshots of job rejections he never told me about, drafts of angry messages he never sent, but definitely meant. And then there were the recordings. Oh, those voice memos he carelessly saved to the cloud. One where he called his boss a spineless moron. Another where he screamed at his mom, saying she was as useless as my girlfriend. I was useless, huh? He broke me first, and still had the nerve to blame me. So I showed him the proof. Not to him directly, not yet. First, I sent the voice clips to his boss. Clean, no commentary, just the audio and the date. I titled the email, "Thought You Should Hear This." Within minutes, it was opened. Within an hour, his work Slack was disabled. No more passive income from pretending to freelance. She exposed him, not with rage, but with receipts. And let me tell you, truth hits harder when it's organized. Next, I logged into the car loan account. He'd been making 0 payments. I was the one paying that damn $386 a month for almost 3 years, a total of over $12,000. I reversed the final payment, flagged his name for potential fraud, and locked the account. I didn't yell. I didn't break windows. I just typed, one keystroke at a time. I was dismantling the false future he thought I'd stick around to build. He thought I would stay. That was always the plan. Be the sweet girlfriend who keeps quiet, who doesn't rock the boat, who forgives and forgets. But the truth came out, and I wasn't going to be anyone's doormat ever again. My silence was my answer, and it was far more terrifying than any loud goodbye. When you ghost a manipulator, they panic. But when you outsmart them, they unravel. I found the messages, dozens of them, flirting with other women, trash-talking me, even asking someone else if she'd ever date a guy with a Mustang. That damn car. I was paying for his ego, and all he gave me in return was emotional breadcrumbs and public humiliation. So I saved the screenshots, sent them to myself, printed them. If he wanted a war, I'd give him a courtroom, if it came to that. But I didn't stop there. I logged into his social media, changed every password, turned every bio into a mirror. One said, "Apologies to everyone I used." Another, "She finally left because I was too busy lying." Poetic justice in a few editable lines. And if he tried to log in, he'd see my favorite message, "Try again later." Because isn't that what he always told me when I asked for time, respect, or answers? I deleted his saved resumes, unsubscribed him from job boards, and left one last surprise. His dating app profiles reactivated with emotionally unavailable, proudly listed. A little gift for whoever came next. Because nobody believed her when she said he was dangerous. Now, the receipts speak louder than her voice ever had to. She cried in silence, but now, she typed in clarity. Funny thing is, I didn't feel vengeful. I felt cleansed, like I was peeling layers of someone else's dirt off my skin. Each click, each forward, each delete was a breath of fresh air. It wasn't revenge for revenge's sake. It was rebalancing, realigning, taking back the version of me that believed love didn't have to come with humiliation. I wasn't destroying his life. I was just removing the mask. He never saw it coming. But that's the thing about people who manipulate others. They assume you're too soft to fight back, too kind to expose them, too tired to act. But here's the truth. When you're finally done, you become unrecognizable to the one who tried to break you. And while he begged her to come back later, I was already 3 steps ahead. And just when I thought I was done, I remembered something. Digital revenge is just the beginning. The real win, what comes next? You know what's wild? I didn't even have to say a word. By the next morning, it all started falling apart, like watching a house of cards collapse in slow motion. The repo company showed up at 6:42 a.m. I didn't even flinch when I heard the tow truck. I just sipped my coffee and listened to the metallic crunch of his precious Mustang being dragged away. That car, gone. That freedom he bragged about, leased in my name, revoked in my hands. He broke me first, but now the world was finally catching up. His boss left a voicemail saying Randy was on probation. Apparently, someone else had already flagged his erratic behavior. My recordings just sealed it. I didn't smile. I didn't celebrate. I just felt still, like the storm had passed and now I could finally hear my own thoughts again. The truth came out. Not with screaming, not with drama, but with the quiet force of someone who's done being underestimated. I moved fast, packed all his belongings, 15 garbage bags to be exact. Nothing labeled, no ceremony, just clothes, cables, unread books, and that awful cologne he wore like a personality. I placed them near the dumpster behind the apartment, texted him the location, and blocked his number right after. My silence was my answer. No goodbyes, no explanations. Let him feel the absence he created. Randy tried calling from other numbers, left voicemails crying, swearing, begging. She finally left, he said in one, as if I was supposed to feel bad, as if he didn't humiliate me, laugh in my face, mock me like I was disposable. He thought I would stay. But I was done playing therapist, accountant, an emotional punching bag. The woman he'd broken, she didn't exist anymore. One of the calls came from a mutual friend. Randy's freaking out, he said. He's saying you hacked him, stole his money, even ruined his life. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. Men like him always rewrite the story when they lose control. I was deceived, yes, but not anymore. Now, I was deliberate, calculated, unapologetically done. Funny enough, the more he scrambled, the more people started seeing who he really was. She exposed him without ever needing to post a single thing publicly. His parents stopped speaking to him. His boss avoided him. Even his gym trainer blocked him. Turns out, when someone stops covering for you, you stop looking innocent. He never saw it coming. Randy's life unraveled, one thread at a time. The car was gone. The job, hanging by a thread. His new girl? Yeah, she dumped him too, after I sent her a taste of the messages I'd found. I found the messages. Screenshots don't lie. She told me I'd saved her months of misery. Said I was brave. Brave? I didn't feel brave. I felt necessary, like someone finally had to say, enough. I didn't do it for revenge. Not really. I did it because betrayal has a ripple effect, and I wasn't going to drown in silence while he swam in sympathy. Stories of betrayal don't have to end with the woman breaking. Sometimes they end with her rebuilding, and the betrayer finally facing consequences he never imagined he'd have to answer for. It's funny how fast people switch sides when the masks fall off. The same neighbors who once waved at him with forced smiles now crossed the street. Even his mom, nobody believed her when she said he was difficult, sent me a letter saying, "Thank you for showing me." I cried when I read it, not out of sadness, but release. For once, someone saw it, all of it. But the story doesn't end with him losing everything. It continues with what I chose to reclaim. When the dust started to settle, I thought I'd be alone in it. I expected cold shoulders, awkward glances, maybe even some people taking his side. But what happened next? It completely flipped my expectations. One by one, people started reaching out, not to judge, but to thank me. Neighbors I barely spoke to knocked on my door. They told me they'd heard things, seen things. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't dramatic. I was right. And that validation, it was like oxygen. His own mother called me, not to defend him, but to apologize. Nobody believed her, she said, talking about her own struggle raising him. I couldn't believe it. The same woman who once asked me to be patient with his moods now admitted she'd been afraid of him too. It's strange how truth breaks barriers. It connects people who've all been hurt by the same monster wearing different masks. Online, Randy spun stories so fast it was dizzying. She hacked my accounts. She stole from me. She ruined my life. But guess what? I had receipts, voice memos, screenshots, timestamps, emails, so I showed him the proof. Not for pity, not for clout, just so I could finally shut every door he tried to keep open with lies. You want to manipulate the narrative? Fine. But don't forget, I wrote down every chapter you thought I was too naive to notice. Mutual friends were split. Some believed him, at first. But when I calmly sent a few recordings of him yelling at me over the smallest things like forgetting to pick up his dry cleaning, they went silent. She cried in silence. I wanted to write under each clip, but but I didn't need to. The tone, the violence in his voice, it spoke louder than I ever could. They heard the monster behind the mask. They changed their minds fast. A few even apologized. I didn't know it was that bad, one said. You always seem so put together. Isn't that the thing, though? He thought I would stay because I looked strong, because I covered for him, because I smiled at parties. We're taught to protect their image even when ours is falling apart. But once the truth came out, people couldn't unsee it. One girl, his ex from college, DM'd me. I was deceived too, she said. She told me her story. Almost the same script. Love bombing, gaslighting, money draining, public embarrassment. We weren't isolated incidents. We were a pattern, and that shook me more than anything. He wasn't just bad to me. He broke me first, but I wasn't the first one he'd broken. That gave my healing a new weight. More women came forward. One had almost moved in with him. Another said he ghosted her after she co-signed a credit card. I compiled their stories, kept them in a folder I titled, Not Just Me. Every time I doubted myself, I'd open it. Stories of betrayal don't always come with bruises. Sometimes they come with overdraft fees, therapy bills, and birthdays spent alone in restaurants. But they're valid, and they matter. I didn't post a tell-all. I didn't trash him publicly. I let the evidence speak. I let the consequences land. That's the thing about revenge. When it's rooted in truth, you don't need to scream. You just need to stop protecting the person who hurt you. The ripple effect handles the rest. People started checking in on me more, asking if I was okay, dropping off coffee, candles, little notes. My world, once so tangled with Randy, slowly became my own again. And in the strangest twist, his betrayal ended up creating a support system I never knew I had. And that support, it gave me strength to take the final step and start again from scratch. I used to think starting over meant erasing everything, changing my name, moving far away, pretending none of it ever happened. But it's not like that at all. Starting over is quieter. It's in the little things, like choosing new bedsheets that he never touched, or changing the scent of my shampoo. I didn't need to disappear. I just needed to reclaim what was mine, my space, my peace, my life. I found a new apartment 2 zip codes away. Nothing fancy, just enough light to make me feel human again. I adopted a gray cat and named her Karma. She follows me around like a shadow, curling up beside me like she knows. She watches me work, nap, heal. My silence was my answer, and now it's my power. I don't owe him or anyone any more explanations. Not after everything I endured. Financially, I was finally free. No more $386 car payments for a man who barely remembered my birthday. Over $2,300 saved in less than 7 months. I bought books, plants, a new coffee table I assembled myself. Every dollar spent on me felt like a tiny act of revenge. Not the bitter kind, but the empowering kind. Like I was slowly undoing every time he made me feel like I was nothing to him. He, on the other hand, spiraled, lost his job, got dumped by his rebound girlfriend. Rumor is, he even tried couch surfing at his ex's place, and she slammed the door in his face. He never saw it coming, because men like that never do. They think they're untouchable until their web of lies collapses, until she finally leaves, until the girl they underestimated turns out to be the storm. He emailed me once, just one line, "I miss what we had." No apology, no accountability, just that narcissistic, nostalgic bait. I didn't respond. I was deceived, but I wasn't. Stupid. You don't step back into the fire just because the smoke has cleared. You don't pick up shards of glass just because they glitter. I left it unread, deleted, done. Strangely, the quiet after the storm was the loudest part. There were nights when I missed the chaos. Not him, but the adrenaline, the pattern, the purpose of fixing someone. But that's what trauma does. It tricks you into believing dysfunction equals love. It lies. And this time, I didn't listen. I looked around my new place, breathed in peace, and reminded myself, he betrayed me, and I survived. I made a new routine, morning walks, fresh coffee, audiobooks on self-respect and boundaries. I got my nails done in colors I loved, not the ones he preferred. I danced in the kitchen while cooking for one. I reclaimed solitude and made it sacred. She planned it. All, I whispered once in the mirror, thinking of the version of me who had quietly gathered strength. Even while pretending to be okay, people kept asking, "How did you do it?" The answer isn't glamorous. I didn't wake up healed. I broke down. I cried in the shower. I questioned everything, but I kept going, even when it felt like I was crawling. That's the truth about betrayal. It breaks you, but it also forces you to rebuild with intention. Every brick placed with care. No shortcuts. No illusions. In the end, I didn't just leave a bad relationship. I buried a version of me that accepted breadcrumbs and begged for validation. That woman, she cried in silence, but but now she speaks. She walks taller. She knows better. She protects herself. And most importantly, she forgives herself for staying too long. Because moving on isn't about pretending it never happened. It's about knowing it did, and still choosing joy anyway.